Salvail here today, looking at the plant of the week this week, and this week is the Tillandsia plant. This is known as an air plant, and these ones, I just bought these ones, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it. I've still got the strings on them. Oops, there we go. Okay, so these little plants, I'm going to take some of these out for you. I've been soaking them in water, and that's because I just purchased them and they get a little dehydrated sitting in the stores, but they do sell them just like this. This is what they look like. And so they're just little plants. These plants are called air plants. So air plants live predominantly across the southern United States and into Mexico and those areas, and they hang on the branches of trees and they root into the tree and they just kind of grow there. They will send out beautiful flowers. Some of them have very exotic looking flowers, all different colors: blues, purples, reds, pinks, and whites. So they come in a bunch of different colors. But Tillandsias are a part of the bromiliad family. So bromiliads really, they do like to get rained on fairly regularly. So they like to get really soaked. Even though they are air plants, their roots are used to anchor. So they'll anchor themselves to a tree and then they'll grow. And then when it rains, the rain will gather in the little branchlets here. Here's another one. And they will, the water will just pool in there in those leaves, and they'll absorb the water and they'll get their nutrients right out of the atmosphere. Some people do use a little bit of fertilizer water, like water soluble fertilizer, and mist them from time to time. I'm not so sure if that's actually absolutely needed or necessary, because they can survive off of what they get out of the atmosphere. But pretty cool plants. So there's over 300 different species of Tillandsias. So some of them are huge and some are small. So I just went and I bought a selection of them. And I'm going to show you what I do today. I'm not actually going to do them, which is I'm going to mount them. I just can't mount them today because I just bought them and I wanted to show you right away. And because they're all soaking wet, I just have to let them dry a little bit. So they love high humidity. So they love the moisture and the humidity. And they also love bright light. Because if you can imagine these things, like I've been down to the Florida Everglades, and in the Everglades, these things just grow everywhere all over the trees. And, they're in the brightest, hottest, sunniest sun all day long, and they just love it. And the humidity is quite high there. And, of course, it rains relatively regularly. So it is quite a beautiful climate there, and it's perfect for Tillandsias. But you can see slightly different foliage. But these centers of these plants, that's where the bloom will come out. So it's pretty cool. I really like Tillandsias. And I know this little one here, I've seen this one bloom. This is one of the prettiest flowering ones. And they just had one small one, so I made sure I got that. So they range in price. Like small ones like this can be about $5. And up to bigger ones that can be about maybe $20, but somewhere in between there, depending on the varieties. I really wish they would be named, but it's very rare to find them actually named. So you have to do a bunch of research, and you have to wait for them to flower ultimately to see what color they are, and so you can identify what species they are. So they're all unique, and there sure is a lot of different types. So again, I bought them a little bit dehydrated. I wanted to soak them, so I put them right in there. I can put them right under the water, give them a good soaking, and we're leaving them in this jar because this allows a little bit of humidity to build up in there. But note that you can grow them in terrariums if you like. You can mount these on, like, say, a burl or a piece of wood of some sort in a jar or in a terrarium of some type. But you do need to have air circulation, because that's one thing about Tillandsias is they're used to growing on trees. There's lots of air movement, and they like that. So if I don't mind growing them in a container like this because the top is open, so I'm still going to get a fair bit of air movement. So now the thing to do when you do have Tillandsias is find a really funky piece of wood. So that's one of the things that's a little bit tricky, but I happen to have a super fancy little piece of wood right here, right behind me. And this is a beautiful chunk of wood that I've had for quite a few years. And that's been my goal all the way along, is to get this beauty out and get it mounted in a bucket. Possibly I'm going to use some plaster of Paris or maybe some quick set concrete of some sort. and something that's fairly heavy, because this thing is quite heavy. It's just sort of balanced there right now. But the goal is going to be to use a hot glue gun. And the hot glue gun, what we would do, and I can't do it because these are soaking wet today, but I would let these dry overnight, and they should be dried up enough. And what I would do is I would mount these on these branches with a little bit of this hot glue gun. So I would just put a little bit of hot glue. I only do sort of one side of the root. I don't do it all around, but I have to have enough on the back side there so it'll mount and it'll hold itself up. So the key there is to try to have something like this one. There's a little twig here in the background. So if I have a big one, I might want to mount it close to that twig because it'll help to hold it upright. And I'll put enough glue in behind it to hold it, and then I'll make sure it dries in that position. Then after I'm done, after I have that in a position on there, and I'll just stand this one here for now, is I will, oh, there she goes. They fall off the trees in Florida as well. But, no they don't. This little guy, we'll just put him like that. So once these plants actually are dried on there, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some sphagnum moss, some nice green sphagnum moss, and I'm just going to tuck it around the base of the plant there, and it helps just to keep it a bit humid, and it'll help to hide any of the glue or anything that might be exposed there. But the key is going to be just finding some interesting mounting spots on this tree, and this tree has got so many cool spots, you know, and you can mount them just about anywhere. And this one, you know, like I say, I have so many options, you know, you could just about mount them anywhere. Put them on the tips of branches. I always try to cluster a few together if I can in areas. So you know, doing this right now, I'm just kind of showing you the example. But I really think this is a cool idea, and it's something you can do. Another thing you can do is you can also add in maybe a few orchids, because a lot of orchids are epiphytic as well, and they kind of like the same conditions. And you could have a couple orchids on here. And in this case, down below here, there's a branch that's just perfect for placing a pot. So you could put a little orchid pot down in there. So I'm pretty lucky to have this particular specimen. So this is going to be the goal, is to get these things all glued on here, get some sphagnum moss around them. The difficult part is once you have them mounted is that you need to get them really wet at least about 2 or 3 times a week. So what I would say there is that once you get them mounted on here, you can see it's fairly difficult to get them moist. So I'm going to have this in a location where I can mist it regularly. So I'm going to just soak those plants, and I'm going to put a big tray underneath it, probably like a boot tray, something you'd have near an entranceway where you'd have a lot of dripping and moisture. So a nice big tray, 24 by 4 feet long or so, and put that underneath this thing once it's all done. And then I can just soak these things, and anything that drips will just fall into that tray. That's fine. High humidity, really bright light is important. So I'm going to try to find a location in the house so I've got the direct light of the window shining on it. Some places, if you read about these, they'll say don't put them in direct light. The problem with that is like, I don't know, have you ever been to Florida? Like, they have a lot of light. These things grow on the trees. So many of the trees there in the Everglades have no leaves on them at all. So this is one of these situations. They love direct sunlight. I would even consider taking this and putting them right outside in the summertime as well. When you have I would put them in dappled sort of sun. Like I have a pergola. That's a perfect spot for something like this. And to add a couple orchids, that would just be super cool, I think. So anyway, we're going to keep working on this project, so watch for future videos on the Tillandsias. So that's it for today. Thanks again for tuning in to growcoach.com.